Let's explore the topic of the term unaccompanied, because that's an easy term, I think, for people to wrap their mind around when you're talking about a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old. But somehow, when somebody turns 18, turns 19, the age where if you're born in the United States or another westernized country, maybe you're going off to college at that point, you're going off to school. It's sort of the coming of age is complete and you're off to
Right.
explore the world. And yet, if you are in this country and you're still struggling to establish yourself and you're not necessarily going to school, but you are working, you're still very much unaccompanied in that sense. So when you think about it and when you talk to the kids and the teens about this, at what point does that term like drop off and we no longer think of them as unaccompanied youth? We now think of them as adults and we
Right.
start to assume they don't need the support that we might have assigned to somebody who we put in the youth category.
Yeah. The term unaccompanied in the US context refers to kids who are apprehended at the border. They're under the age of 18, have no legal status, and no guardian when they're apprehended. So, by those terms, technically, the young people that I spent 6 years with and researching are not actually unaccompanied children because they were not apprehended at the border and they aren't federally designated. There's no paperwork that assigns them the term or the category unaccompanied child. But the lived reality is that they migrated without a parent or guardian, and they are growing up in the US without a parent or guardian or anyone that is sort of giving care to them. They are their own caregivers, right? So I assigned the term to this group of youth that I interviewed, sort of informally, because it is a reflection of their reality. Um, what the, what is sort of hard to grapple with, and even as a researcher who has spent now 13 years studying this stuff, is the sort of rigid categories around childhood and youth, as you're suggesting, and like a young adulthood, emerging adulthood is, what psychologists use and child development folks. And then adulthood, like when are you actually any of those things? I mean, I'm in my 30s. I call my mom for everything. I'm a professor at Berkeley. I wrote a book and I still am like, Mom, I got this letter in the mail. What does it mean? Like I oftentimes don't feel like an adult myself, right? Um,
None of us do.
yeah. So I actually asked my research participants of the 75 people that I interviewed, I asked them, um, like, what does being adult mean to you? When did you reach adulthood? And that's really tricky when we're talking about kids who have been shining shoes and selling trinkets on the street since they were 3 years old, right? Kids who never completed school, um, people who are at the age of 25 when I'm interviewing them in Los Angeles at a boba shop, still doing the exact same thing they were doing at 7, just in a different place and with a little more advanced machinery. So to them, even the lines of childhood, adulthood, it's all blurred. So I really explore in the book this idea of an emergent frame of reference. The idea that young people have really, the young people that I was researching have really sort of blurry senses of what childhood, adulthood, um, legality, illegality, belonging, non belonging, all of these sort of things that they're confronting with. They have blurry senses of what those things mean because they established an understanding of childhood in Guatemala or El Salvador or Honduras or Mexico. And to them, that was, the sort of family agreement that kids would finish 3 years of school and then start working. Um, I have quite a few interview participants that said, when you're over there, you think kids everywhere are living this life, that everyone is working when they're 8 years old. You sort of imagine that everyone else is also just going to school for 3 years and then it's over. So in the US context, when they're working at a factory or a restaurant kitchen and everyone around them is an adult and they're asking themselves like, well, where are the kids? And the kids are all at school because K through 12 is compulsory in the US. Then they go to church and children are accompanied by their adult parents, or they're in community and they see teenagers just living a different life. There's a frame of reference of childhood that emerges in the US context that is just not possible in their lived reality while they're still in the highlands of Guatemala. It's the same thing with illegality, right? Where young people are fully aware that they're migrating to the US as undocumented immigrants. But the meaning of that as an embodied experience, as something that they're living in everyday life, it emerges through interactions that they have in the US. Like, what does it actually mean to be someone without legal status? What does it actually mean to be an indigenous young person um, outside of Guatemala or Honduras? Like those things emerge in a US context. So the same, it's actually really heartbreaking to have conversations with unaccompanied young people who realize I live as an unaccompanied person, but because I wasn't apprehended, I don't have that title and therefore I don't qualify for those services, right? Or I've been here as long as the DACA kids, but because I don't have the paperwork and I'm working instead of at school, I don't qualify for that category. There's all of these confrontations, and it's just heartbreaking to see young people like have that frame of reference emerge in real time.